Hey everybody, welcome back to Gideon Stuff. Today I am super excited. We've got a great video. I put a lot of time and effort into this one, just like every video, obviously. But I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We are ranking every single knife lock I have ever handled, and we're doing it via a tier list. These are very popular, or they were like a year or two ago. Hopefully they're still popular and I'm keeping up with the trends. But here's our tier list right here. As you can see, we have an S through F, S being the best and F being the worst. There's also an E tier, which I didn't realize until I was already setting up this list. And I don't know, I didn't take it out. But yeah, interesting. The only time I ever got an E as a grade was in elementary school, and it was E for excellent. However, in the case of this tier list, it appears to be E for ew. Anyways, I am going to be only listing locks I've personally handled. I think that's fair. So there will be gaps in this. I have not handled every single knife lock in the world. Wish I could say I have, but I haven't. And then we're going to be giving it a rank based on this list. Of course, everything is my personal opinion. However, on this channel, I am God, and my opinion is always correct. Nah, I'm just kidding. Kind of, sort of. Anyways, let's go ahead and jump right into this. These locks are not going to be rated on strength or fidgetability. Instead, it's just kind of a conglomerate of all of that. It's just how I personally feel about that lock in terms of, strength will play into it, fidgetability will play into it, ease of use will play into it. But yeah, none of those different elements holds more weight than any other. So to start off this list, we've got fixed blades. I wasn't going to include or mention fixed blades because, I just wanted to keep this with folding knives. However, I figured someone might mention it. So fixed blades, S tier. Easily an S tier. This is a lock that will never fail. You'd have to break the knife, and it's very easy to use, kind of idiot-proof, So yeah, fixed blades are an absolute S tier. Starting off strong, aren't we? Next up, frame locks. One of the most common knife locks ever, especially when you start getting into the high-end stuff. There's a lot to love about frame locks. They're so popular for a reason, right? They're a classic. They've got a good amount of strength. They're fairly easy to use, but they do have some drawbacks. For one, the exposed frame lock, if you have your finger there, it can make deploying the knife nearly impossible. And two, if you don't have an over-travel stop, you might unspring it. That's why over-travel stops are great. They're not really the best for lefties. So we're going to be giving a frame lock a B+, and this is a high B. Like if I was giving it a number grade, it'd be an 88 or an 89. So it's almost an A-, but we're going to keep it at a B+. Still very good score, and I do like frame locks quite a bit. I should also say, as we go through this, if you have any differing opinions, let me know in the comments below. Even if you're stupid, I'll read the comments. Next up, we have liner locks. Very similar to frame locks with a couple of key differences. I am actually putting liner locks as an A-. That's right, I do think liner locks score higher than frame locks. They may not be as strong, but you can still have very strong liner locks. But some of their real advantages come with the fact that they are hidden under the scales. So they don't create any problems in your hand. You're not going to lock yourself out of the knife by applying too much pressure on the detent. They're a lot more lefty-friendly for that reason. And in my experience, liner locks are just a little more intuitive for people. They're very easy to use. If I hand someone a liner lock knife and they're not really a knife person, usually they can figure out how to unlock it. Sometimes it's a little bit of a struggle, but usually they get it. So yeah, Very well-rounded lock, very user-friendly, very easy to maintain too, you know? Liner locks are, they're pretty simple. It's a bent piece of metal inside your knife. Yeah, pretty cool. I do like liner locks. Still, you know, they're not super strong and they're not super exciting, so they're not going to be any higher than an A-. Alrighty, let's move on to some more complex stuff. The crossbar lock. And yes, I know there are a ton of these on the market nowadays. A ton. You've got the axis lock, able lock, clutch lock, rock lock. There's all kinds. But for the sake of this video, we're going to treat them all as one. I know the clutch lock is, you know, adjustable and might be better. I've never handled a clutch lock, but we're just going to treat all bar locks as the same. Sounds a little bit racist. But anyways, these are knives. I do like crossbar locks. They offer a lot of strength. They're completely ambidextrous. First lock we've looked at so far, besides the fixed blade, that's completely ambidextrous. It's a very, very nice lock, and I do enjoy them. However, for me, a crossbar lock isn't the most natural thing to do. I feel like there's a lot of rearranging of your fingers when you go from using to closing these, and the Omega springs are a little bit of a weak point. I've never broken an Omega spring. Well, actually I have, but that was on a very cheap knife. We don't count that. But, you know, it can happen. Yeah, for these reasons, and also, I don't know, I do typically choose other things over crossbar locks. Again, I like crossbar locks. They're just not really my go-to. We're going to give crossbar lock a nice solid B. I think there's a lot of good stuff here, and, you know, an 85%, you know, if we want to keep giving numbers, it's a good score. It's a really, really good lock. I do enjoy crossbar locks, but, yeah, just not my go-to. It's one of those things I don't know. Maybe I don't really have very many good reasons, but it's a B. Okay, now we're going to start seeing some of my personal biases show. The triad lock. This thing is awesome. Very strong lock. I mean, gosh, the triad lock is just legendary. It's a back lock on steroids, right? I'm giving the triad lock an A, a solid A. I'm not giving it an A+ because, you know, I think triad locks are very easy to use. A lot of people, even if they're new to knives, know what a back lock is. But I have had a lot of people, you know, have a triad lock, and they don't understand how much you have to push down on that bar to make it come down. Almost chopped my finger off. We don't want another we don't want another accident on our hands. But I mean, the toughness that you get, the durability. If you spend enough time with triad locks, you know, you get to where you can one-hand them very easily. To me, it's a bomb-proof lock. The engineering behind it is awesome. So yeah, we're giving it an A tier. Maybe not the friendliest to fidgeters or newbies, but hey, I am not a newbie. So yeah, solid A tier. Next up, this one's pretty popular these days. The button lock. Everyone is doing button locks nowadays. And I gotta say, I've got mixed feelings. You guys know I've got mixed feelings. On this knife here, the Pyrite, I could not imagine this knife without a button lock. And I love this knife. Love it. The button lock and everything. Oh, it's fantastic. Great knife. And I don't think I'd love it as much without the button lock. However, then we have like this knife, and if you see my review of this knife, the Kaiser Begleiter XL, it had so many problems out of the box. I spent months fixing it to where now it's a functional knife, but for a long time it wasn't. The lock would fail, it would get stuck where it wouldn't flip out. Sometimes it'd flick out and then not engage and just swing back shut. Had a lot of issues with it. I've had issues with button locks failing. I've had issues with them getting gummed up from dirt or pocket lint. So I think, a button lock is kind of finicky to me. The Pyrite nails it. This knife feels super solid. Great button lock. I mean, look at this. Look how it just sucks the blade in. No bounce. A little bit of lock stick, but on button locks, I prefer a little bit of lock stick. I don't know. It's weird with button locks. Like this knife, the way this knife functions, easy A tier. The way this knife functioned before I fixed it was an absolute the absolute F tier, not S tier. Absolute F tier. So we've got an F and we have an A. I'll be honest, even though I've had problems with button locks, besides just this one, none of them were as bad as this guy. So I'm willing to give this one the, assumption that it was an outlier. And I think taking all the negatives and the positives and averaging them out, we're going to give button locks a B+. Not as high as a frame lock, I don't think. This is going to be a B+, more along the lines of like a 86, 87. Really, really good lock, but yeah, I have had issues with them in the past. And I hold a grudge, gosh dang it. Alrighty, so there's our first group done. Here's what the chart looks like so far. Let's go ahead and move on to the second group. Starting us off, we're going classic slip joints. Now this is interesting because there are lots of different variations, on slip joints. Like this case knife, we've got no half stop or anything. I've got a knife here that has a half stop, which, I consider a half stop to be a little bit of a safety mechanism. With some slip joints, like this one here, you can actually grab it like this and prevent the blade from closing on you and injuring you. But even a knife like this, these were around forever. People use them. I've used these a lot. And, as long as you're aware of what you're doing, you won't really cut yourself. Still, there is that chance of human error. I have cut myself with so many slip joints. In fact, I think if I were to rate all of my knife cuts, most of them would be from slip joints. Serious and non-serious alike. And it was all due to the fact that they just don't lock up. They're not very fidgety. They're very classic. They do work. They're great for people who live in areas where you can't carry a locking knife, and we have some non-locking options later that this is definitely way better than. Still, I think a slip joint's going to get a C, a nice solid C, 75%. It's a passing grade, but nothing special. They are great. I love slip joints. I really do. But as far as knife locks go, I think they're a C compared to everything else we've got going. Next up, this is kind of a specialty lock, I guess maybe we'll call it. This is the CJRB recoil lock, or artisan recoil lock. As far as I know, there are only 2 CJRB models with this lock, and either 1 or 2 artisan models. That's it. And I think that's a shame because I really do like this lock a lot. A lot. It's very cool. To be honest, I prefer it over an Axis lock. It's kind of the same thing as a crossbar lock, but I think it was different enough to warrant its own place. I like it. I'd love to see Artisan do more with this lock, like some thumb stud or blade slot knives instead of just flippers. But it works great, very strong. It can be a little bit slippery to grab onto that, and especially on this knife that has the slit carbon fiber. I should get a grippier knife. It can be a little bit hard to manipulate. So we're going to give it a B, right with the crossbar lock. We're going to give them both Bs. In my personal opinion, this might be a little bit higher. We're talking maybe like an 84 and an 85. But yeah, really cool lock. I definitely would like to see more knives with it. Okay, next up, this is one of the non-locking options I was talking about. Double detent knives. I don't actually have one with me right now. I hate double detent. knives. I actually had a guy loan in a couple of Civivi, what were they called? The Stylums? The Ferrum Forge design? The Stylum or Stylus? I think it's Stylum. He loaned in two. The green or brown micarta and... was it a black micarta? I can't remember. He loaned those in along with something else. And I filmed an unboxing, and I was not a fan of the Stylum at all. And so the next day, the unboxing was really negative, and I was like, okay. So I started carrying the Stylum, see if maybe my opinion would change, and it didn't. I hated it. I'd pull the knife out of my pocket and flip it to use it. I'd flick it open, and it like bounced back closed. You had to get it just right, and then it'd stay open, and the slightest amount of pressure would close the blade. Just a tap on the spine would close it. And that was on both models. And yeah, you had like that finger choil you could get up into to kind of mitigate that. But I mean, it was so frustrating to be using the knife and then it just keeps like just folding over. I ended up sending both of them back to the guy that sent them. I didn't review them, didn't post the unboxing. He did send another knife that I ended up reviewing. What was it? Yeah, I can't remember. But yeah, Charles, if you're watching, yeah. Sorry about that, but I hate double detent slip joints. And they're not even slip joints, they're just double detent knives. I have handled like the Outdoor Edge Swinky, that was kind of cool, but, and I know there's a lot of double detent knives out there that have like a pin you can put in after you flip it open to lock it out, which is cool, but we're not counting those on the list today. I think that's a little bit of a cheat if you have an outside part. But yeah, I do not like double detent knives, and I have ranted about them for enough. We are putting double detent knives in the F tier. I do not like them. No, sir, I do not like them. Sam, I am. Okay. Moving on. Bolster locks. I've got one right here. Yeah, this is exactly the same thing as a frame lock, except most of the lock is hidden under a scale. So we are giving bolster locks an A-. We're an A- that's slightly above a liner lock. So if a liner lock's like a 91, 92, this would be a 93 or a 94. I like bolster locks. You get the strength and kind of elegance of a frame lock, but you get kind of the usability of a liner lock. And then, the negatives of both a liner lock and frame lock, apply to the bolster lock. So, it's got that great lock. Cannot go wrong with a bolster lock. Absolutely love them. And they just look so damn good. Excellent, excellent stuff. Moving on to one of my personal favorites. The Scorpion lock, designed by Andrew Dimko. This gets an A+. Yeah, right away. This is an A+. The only reason I'm not putting this in S tier is because it does take a little bit of getting used to. You do have to adjust a little bit to the way this knife and lock works. It's not the most intuitive thing, but once you figure it out, man, this thing is fast and it's super strong. I mean, look at that groove there. Listen to this lockup. Oh, music to my ears. And plus, when you grip the knife and you're bearing down on that lock, it just makes it stronger and stronger. Really, really just an amazing piece of engineering. Very strong, very cool. Yeah, just a really, really great lock. It gets a lot of bonus points for being so innovative and just awesome. So yeah, A+ 100%. Alrighty, moving on. Back locks that are at the back. Tail locks, as they're commonly called. Look, a back lock is it's a tried and true design. It's reliable, but I do not like tail locks. And I know it's blasphemous. The classic Buck 110 is a tail lock. But I don't hate tail locks the same way I hate double detents, but I just don't really gravitate towards them. They just add extra steps in my opinion. You know, this knife would be pretty one-handable except for that tail lock. You know, no, it just doesn't really work out for me. So tail locks, we're either going to give tail locks, we're going to give tail locks a D. Just a solid D. I was going to give it like a D minus E plus, but I don't even like that E grade scale. So we're going to give the tail lock, we're just going to give it a solid D, 65%. It's fine, but it's definitely below average. Alrighty, and that concludes our second group. Let's go ahead and move on to the last group. Here's what our tier list looks like now. Take that in, drink it in, and let's get started. Alrighty, kicking it off with a knife lock that I could not wait to try out when I first got into knives, and that is Spyderco's compression lock. I am not the biggest compression lock fan. I'll be honest with you guys. It's a very neat idea. It's a very strong lock. I just don't find using it to be all that intuitive. You get up here and if you want to do it one-handed, I have dropped several knives on my feet doing this just because, I was in the middle of work or something. The other thing is when I'm wearing gloves, like in the wintertime, out cutting hay bales, feeding the cows or something, I cannot manipulate this lock. Like my gloved fingers don't have the dexterity to get in there and do it. And yes, do everything two-handed to be safe. Even with gloves, a two-handed thing doesn't really work out that great for me. I just compression locks. It's cool and it's functional, and there are things you can do to make them better, like OCD for EDC's CME stuffs that you can buy them to put on there. But honestly, yeah, it's a C. We're just going to give it a flat C. Very innovative, very strong, and, once you get used to it, and if you're just sitting here fidgeting, it's okay, but it's not my favorite, if I'm out using my knife. I just don't find it to be that intuitive. So yeah, C. Okay, moving on to a rather new lock, and a very, very cool one. The Atlas lock from Cold Steel. And yes, this is very similar to a lock that will be showing up later, but I really like this lock. And especially on this little knife here, it is, so much fun. Very, very easy to use. When I first tried the Atlas lock, I wasn't sure how I'd feel about it sitting so far back instead of being up to the front. Honestly, it doesn't take anything to get used to that. It's a very good lock, very fidgety, but very strong. Really, really neat. I like it a lot. We're giving it an A, just a solid A. Very, very cool stuff. Plus, it kind of gives the knife like a little bit of like a spaceship vibe. I don't know why, but it does. Okay. Next up, we have OTFs, and I don't have an OTF with me right now because illegal, but I have handled several OTFs. We're going to give OTF a B-. I haven't had a whole lot of experience using OTF knives, so I'm not sure what the capabilities of their lock are, but, I do know that they're used in a lot of tactical situations, so I have to expect it's pretty good. OTFs feel great. I really want an OTF. I may just have to take Lefty EDC advice and just get one. That's what he told me, just get one because I'm not being strip searched every day. As far as he knows, he doesn't know what I get into. But yeah, B-, cool stuff. Next up, while I was looking through my footage of the Hogue OTF I used at a guns show, I saw that I'd also handled the CRKT Provoke. And yeah, this was an interesting lock. I'm not even sure what it's called. We're gonna give it a C minus. I don't think it's super intuitive, but it is really neat. So C minus. Next up, another knife that I don't have with me, an example of with me right now, but friction folders. Friction folders are really cool. They can be executed very well. They can also be executed not very well. But I'm going to give them a C minus. Nothing special. It's literally just a blade moving between two pieces of wood. Nothing mind-blowing. And next up, another knife that I don't have an example of with me right now. Holy crap. The mid-mounted backlock, like you'll see on like a Spyderco and Della or Delica. Very, very classic lock. I definitely prefer it over the tail lock. The backlock's just tried and true. Very, very solid. This is going to be getting a B minus. They can be fidgety if you know what you're doing. They can be very strong, but you know, they've got their own limitations and stuff. B minus, I think they're an excellent lock, but that's definitely where they belong. And next up, our last one, the Shark Lock, designed by Andrew Dimko. What do I even say? Like seriously, what do I even say? Look at that beautiful hunk of brilliant engineering. Strong, fidgety, smart. It checks all the boxes. This is an S tier. 100%. The Shark Lock is an S tier. Wonderful, wonderful lock. Cannot recommend it enough. If you have not tried one out, you need to. It's absolutely brilliant. And that's going to be the end of the video today, guys. Here's our final tier list. Take a look at that. Tell me what you think. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you have any corrections you want to make, feel free to let me know about them in the comments. I think this was really fun. I'll probably add to this list as I handle more locks. One lock that I've handled that I just forgot about was the Opinel twist lock. But, I mean, you know what? I don't think we're missing anything. That'd probably be a D+. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I've been Gideon. If you like this video, leave it a like, comment below, and subscribe. I've been Gideon. I'll see you in the next one. Adios.